there is a big difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And a lot of small business people, they go into it that they just really want to be the best them they can be. They want to be the best salesman they can be. They want to be the best technician they can be. They want to be the best coder they can be. And they really want to not be held back and just be the best. And they actually own their job. A business owner in contrast has a totally different mindset. It's all about the team that you build. It's all about the systems that you build. It's all about the integration. And if you want to really know the difference between a self-employed person and a business owner, if a business owner leaves for a week, are people still served? If a business owner leaves for a month or 3 months or whatever the case is, are the customers still cared for? Does the income still come in? Are people still served to a high level? Or if you're not working, does the income quit? Does the service quit? Does the people you're serving suffer? And that's the big difference between a self-employed and a business owner.
Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
All right, Boyd Smith, welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
You're welcome. So you're the founder and president at TechKnowledgey, a managed IT service for businesses in the Midwest and surrounding states. You bring people, technology, and solutions into balance through successful hybrid cloud solutions, integrated IT services, and managed print services. Thank you so much, man, for being here. This is long overdue. We've been talking about getting you here. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and you're such a great guy. You do such great work for your partners, and you have a great team behind you. So thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and I've enjoyed getting to know you too.
Awesome. So yeah, we spent some time together. We've been at some business transformation programs. We went to Prague. We were in Prague together. Man, yep. It's like two birds, one stone, or birds of a feather stick together, or whatever it may be. But yep. you built a successful business, but it didn't start out. You basically started out, and I love the term adversity breeds opportunity, right? And so yep. For you, I think you said it was your freshman year, that ultimately led like where you are today. And just like good IT folks, it was a broken computer. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I went to college in the dark days of the last century, late 90s. And so it would have been my freshman year at Grace mm-hmm. College. And I had a computer, which was unusual to have that in your dorm room, back in the mid 90s. Right. Mm-hmm. And my computer broke. I had no money to pay IT guys to fix it. So I just started ripping it apart, figured it out, and I managed to get the old thing up and running. So that was kind of my first opportunity there. And then after that, there was this new thing called the internet. And one of my professors said that we had to turn in the group project in HTML format. And so I didn't feel like going to the library to do research. I didn't feel like writing papers. So I said, yeah, give me that. I'll try and figure that out. So then that was kind of a second hit. And, those two things got me to switch from international business to a double major of management of information systems and business administration.
That's awesome, Boyd. So when you were in college, you were already thinking like an entrepreneur, though, weren't you? I mean, you started to begin that, I want to own a business someday. Is that right?
I knew that was a distinct possibility. I mean, my senior year of college, I'm one of those weird guys that I actually wrote a business plan, right? With some life goals in it, and so I knew that was a distinct possibility, and so that was something that was on my heart, but it would take a while for that to grow into fruition.
Awesome. If I remember this correctly, I think you said your first job out of college was with a value-added reseller. What mm-hmm. was that like, and what did you learn while you were at the VAR?
Yeah. I've got a really short adult resume. I worked about 8 years at the VAR, and then I opened up my own shop. Yep. I'm in my late 40s now, so it's a short resume. And what I learned with the VAR was sales. I learned commission sales. And that was a really good spiritual, emotional training ground because $3 out of 4 that I earned was based on my performance. So that was a really great way to train up my spirit, to get used to the bigger risk that would come of starting a business and, dealing with everything that comes into that and disciplining myself. And I also learned that the business to business sales world was a world that is it's really a high trust world. And in some ways, that high trust world of B2B sales set me up for some early failures as an entrepreneur, because not all things in business are a high trust environment.
Awesome. So what motivated you to leave the secure job working for the man, as they say, and start your own business?
I hit a ceiling there. I did all that I could do. And, I approached my employer. I said, hey, could I buy into the business? Basically he smirked and just about laughed me out of his office. I just knew that there wasn't anything more to that journey. And at that point, we put down roots. We live here in a little town called Goshen, Indiana, a town of about 35,000 people in northern Indiana, about 45 minutes outside of South Bend. And my wife grew up north of here, about 15 minutes north of here, a little town called Middlebury. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when we got married, she said the Goshen was halfway. So I got trained in marital compromise pretty quick. And so, we weren't going to move. So I had to figure my own thing out. And that was, I knew that this was the path for me that was going to be the crucible that would turn me into the man that I was meant to be.
That's awesome. So we have all kinds of different listeners to this podcast. Some of them are business owners. Some of them are technicians, maybe soon to be business owners, just trying to hear other people's stories. For those that have not started their own business, what is that process like, Boyd?
Do not underestimate how hard it is. To be a first generation business owner, it's pretty rare. So the first thing that I think people mess up when they go into business is we have bad language around different types of businesses.
There is a big difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And a lot of small business people, they go into it that they just really want to be the best them they can be. They want to be the best salesman they can be. They want to be the best technician they can be. They want to be the best coder they can be. And they really want to not paddle back and just be the best. And they actually own their job. A business owner in contrast has a totally different mindset. It's all about the team that you build. It's all about the systems that you build. It's all about the integration. And if you want to really know the difference between a self-employed person and a business owner, if a businest owner leaves for a week, are people still served? If a business owner leaves for a month or 3 months or whatever the case is, are the customers still cared for? Does the income still come in? Are people still served at a high level? Or if you're not working, does the income quit? Does the service quit? Does the people you're serving suffer? And that's the big difference between a self-employed and a business owner.
I know here in the Enable community, we have plenty of self-employed people and we have plenty of business owners too. And we got great self-employed people in our community. We got great business owners in our community, but spiritually and emotionally, I just think those are very different animals. And that's the first lesson that I tell anybody considering going into business is, which animal are you? I love self-employed people. They're just different than business owners. It's a very different journey.
Yeah, that's really good, Boyd. I appreciate you going into detail on that. And I hear a lot of business owners not understand that early on, right? And so that's really good that you clarify that. So you mentioned Enable, the amazing company that I work for. How about where and when did you come across us in your journey?
Oh, I don't know if the marketing team is going to like this or not, but so I first came across Enable. It was late. I've been a late bloomer my whole life, and that's okay. We always get there, and that also keeps us young. But I first came across Enable that I was looking at acquiring a book of customers, a customer list from somebody that was getting out of the game. And I noticed there's this thing called SolarWinds on the list that they were doing. At the time, we were doing block hours. We were doing some resale stuff. The only managed service that we had was managed print at the time. Okay. And so I started digging into that, and I started pulling on that thread. And then that led me to coming across SolarWinds RMM, as he guys were known at the time. And so that was the initial thing. I placed an initial order to figure out, okay, who are these people? Why do I want to pay them a piece of everything that I do for every customer that I serve? What do they bring to the table? And I went out to the Scottsdale conference. If I remember right, what was that? 2018-ish, 2019-ish.
Sounds about right.
It was, 5-6 years ago. And I brought my wife with me there. And the main reason that I went to that conference was I'm a relational guy. I double down on people. At the end of the day, if you can't trust people, you don't got anything. If don't have good people to deal with, if you don't have trustworthy people to deal with, you're never going to get anywhere, because business moves at the speed of trust. And my mission of going out there, obviously I had some business with y'all because I got, I got the email that, hey, we have this event. So I went out there and I remember meeting Weeks out there. I remember seeing Pags from the stage. I remember, meeting several people there. And I just kind of had a comfort in my spirit that, okay, these are good people. These are, trustworthy people, that they have their partners' interest in mind as well as their own. They're dialed in. I came across feeling pretty good. And coming out of that event, I went ahead and jumped in and, started loading up. And, luckily I was late to the game, so I didn't have to try and fail at something. I just got to get something that works right away, and we ran with it. It wasn't too far after that I got asked to be on Partner Advisory Council, and that was a real critical part of the journey to start getting a relationship with other MSPs. And net, since that time, my business has doubled and my bottom line has quadrupled. This stuff really, it is good business to double down on people and love people well.
Number one, we're so happy for you, because that's what we want to see happen to all of our partners: double, triple, quadruple, if that's what they're looking for. The other thing too, we really appreciate your input, Boyd. Like, we need to hear from our partners that this is working or this isn't working, and we want more of this and we want less of this. And you've been a great advocate for that. So thanks for that. So let's go back to your early days again of your MSP. You were operating during sort of the Great Recession, right? I mean, how did you navigate and challenge the economic downturn?
It took everything I had. I mean, looking back on it, I opened my doors in 2007. By the end of 2008, the Great Recession hit Northern Indiana really hard. That 1 out of 4 people in my neighborhood had no work at all. Wow. I mean, it was as bad as anybody had ever seen it. Fear ruled the day. And I had to, the way I got through those days is I just decided I was not going to be afraid. And I had to really discipline myself. I had to shut off the news because there wasn't anything good on it. I depended on my friends. I depended on my faith. And I drained out my savings to, get through to pay for my early rounds of mistakes. And it just through sheer grit and determination. I was just too stupid to quit. And we were going to see this through the other side. And survival is a wonderful defense mechanism. Survival is a wonderful motivator, right? And the early, Chris, I could write a book about the mistakes that I made in the early days of the business, especially mistakes and team mistakes. I didn't know how to interview people. I didn't know how to hire people. I didn't, my HR management was horrible. Where on the other end in sales, I've always done well, but that's a high integrity exchange that, if I deliver what I say you're going to deliver and you pay me, business to business sales is this high integrity, high trust game. That is not the game of early employment, especially when you don't have much money to pay people.
Yeah.
It's the game today, but it didn't start that way.
I love that term grit too, Boyd, because I think it's about, and I'd say it's a Midwest thing, but I see tons and tons of business owners and entrepreneurials have this grit mentality of just like, figure it out, whatever it's going to take. I'm going to continue to push on, and, almost like the Titanic. I'm going to go down there with the ship if I have to, but, although I think he jumped on a lifeboat and didn't go down with the ship. But anyway, yeah.
And that'll get you to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
But the real trick is not getting the business up and running. The real trick is sustaining it. Okay, how are you going to do this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? That's the hard part. Everybody focuses on startup. Congratulations, you started a business. Now the hard part begins, and nobody really talks about that. Everybody's always talking about startup, or, we always, look to the wrong sources of inspiration that, shoot me if I ever hear about another business book from a billionaire that's so far outside of the bell curve that their experience is real. They're great. but they are so far out of the bell curve. They're either so smart or so lucky or a one-time event or, whatever the case is. You could study them all day long. And there's nothing that Elon Musk does that I can apply to my life that's sustainable and duplicatable, where if I, back down and I say, okay, what do people at the 95th percentile do? This is where the business transformation events really help. Okay. People that are playing a high game, that 95th percentile, kind of cut that 1% out. Now, all of a sudden, it's a totally different game. Now there's stuff that I can learn, I can sustain, I can do, I can be in community with people to help figure this stuff out. I can serve them. It's a totally different game. And those are some of the early lessons that I had to learn, that you had to just kind of, let go of so much. I mean, I can't stress enough how running and building a business is an ego crushing activity. You have to be willing to die to the ego if you're going to see this game through.
Yeah. I think I remember you saying that, during those sort of tough times, you went through some tough times with your first couple of clients as well. Some of those clients are still with you today. What was that like?
I'm thankful. One of my, I was just yesterday afternoon, we're doing a big fiber backbone upgrade for, that first managed services client. They're still a client today. I think that, it wasn't because I was a trustworthy business. We'll get into that a little bit later in the podcast, that, we've got a culture of trust that is really our secret sauce. And, but it was because they saw the potential and they knew, obviously, I'm going to pick on Rob here a little bit. He's still the president of that company. And, Rob trusted me with that network because, somehow he knew that, I wasn't going to come up short. I was a new business. I didn't have the track record. I didn't have the team. I didn't have the systems. But, in the early days, it was people buying into me. And then as the business grew, you have to grow. Everything has to be beyond yourself as a business owner. Everything has to be all about the team and the systems and the processes and the business. But, early on to get to that first, $500,000 in sales or, whatever the mark is, people are buying you. But later on, it's not about you. It's about the business that's been built.
That's right. So you've spoken about some lessons that you've learned managing debt in your early days of your business. How did those experiences shape your approach to financial management and growth going forward?
Great question. So debt was never my friend. My testimony about debt in the early days of the business is it allowed me to make bigger mistakes and carry them further, because debt spends just like real money until the bill comes due. And so, I never got into debilitating debt. I never, had trouble making payments. I've always run a fiscally sound house, but debt was not my friend. That you have to solve business problems as you go. And I've noticed that a lot of small business people, they think their business is running really good, but then if you account for the debt, it is not running really good. Even when I see the benchmarking that, Enable has people and peer groups go through, it's like, there can be some really good benchmarks, but then you don't know what the debt load is. And you put that debt load in there, those benchmarks aren't really good, because you can make any numbers look anywhere if you get to hide, something somewhere else. And that's what debt is. So early on, I came across one of my mentors from afar was Dave Ramsey. And his Entree Leadership Program, that's been a business community that I've been part of for over a decade now. And about 5 years into the business, I spent a week with him and his senior leadership team at one of their events in Texas. And to get to know them, I actually ramped up and ran a half marathon. I ramped from 3 to 13 miles inside of 4 weeks. And I wanted to spend some time with them. And I've kept that up since. That kind of inspiration, right? And so today TechKnowledgey is a completely debt-free business, real estate and everything. And, being a debt-free business is rare. And the cash flow is different for a debt-free business, but, you've seen the benchmarks, the business speaks for itself, and, other people have. And, I'd say that being a debt-free business is definitely one of the main things. That discipline is one of the main things that, we're a top 20% MSP according to the Enable benchmarks.
One of the things that has impressed me so much about you, in addition to your personality, which is second to none. Is your financial knowledge. Like most IT guys that start a business don't have this sort of business work ethic, and you've really built that over the years. And I've been really, really impressed with, number one, how you run your business by the numbers. You joined the benchmark just to make sure that you could compare yourself against others, but you knew what your numbers were. You knew when to hire, when to make changes.
Yeah, you guys were a little bit surprised that somebody actually knew their numbers before submitting the benchmark. I had to convince you a little bit. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. From our experience, yes, it was. It was a rare thing, but but you guys have grown pretty significantly over the years here, and I guess my follow-up question to that is, what strategies or decisions did you think were crucial during that growth spurt, especially in the competitive MSP space?
So there's three big decisions that fueled our growth. One we already talked about, which was the financial commitment to running a good business and the discipline of running a debt-free business. Two was the strategy. And the strategy is anything that is not directly customer facing, there's probably somebody else out there that can do it better. So that's where Enable comes in. Enable helps me grow my capability and capacity. It's why we outsource our firewall management. It's why I've got a 24/7 NOC that looks after our endpoints. So if it's not directly customer facing, I source with other businesses. I've got a great outsourced accounting and billing team. They work out of Clearwater, Florida. I've prospered working with them. But anything that is customer facing, we keep in-house. So that's a key strategy there, to make sure to know, what do you do in-house? What's the value you bring in-house? And what can you hire somebody else to do as good as or better to give you other capability? And then all of that is based on our culture of trust. And we've actually codified the culture of trust. We actually train on that. We talk on this, in every sales call. We talk on this on every hire. We talk about this. This is our troubleshooting checklist. This is how we deal with our vendors. It's understanding what goes into being trustworthy in a day. Let's face it, these are times of low trust, right? People are mismanaging trust left and right. People are dividing and conquering. There's so few. Everybody's hungry for trustworthy people, and it just seems like we live in untrustworthy times. So if you can show up as trustworthy in that kind of background as untrustworthy times, that is a legitimate competitive advantage.
That's awesome, Boyd. So you mentioned that you were sort of late to the game in your transition to maybe managed services, but what changes, how did you transition this, and what were the changes you had to make to really bring this model into the fold for you?
Well, first it was offering it, building the systems, building the team, having the right people on the bus. And then the early customers, we were able to transition their block hours over that. At least I was not late to the recurring revenue game, but we bucketed it different. There was customers that used to buy 25 hours a month of block hours that maybe today they only buy 5 hours a month of block hours. And then the rest of that spend went over to managed services. So that's a huge help there. And then, of course, we don't do anything now that's not on managed services. We don't offer any, we will not service any customer that's not on a managed services contract because that's the commitment. We need to keep healthy things healthy, give every customer appropriate level of security, and make sure things are backed up. And if customers don't want to take care of the basics and execute on the basics well, you just can't serve them. They have to be able to make those basic commitments if you're going to bring them on as a customer.
Yeah, you're taking on a ton of risk too, when you take on a customer. And so the beauty of managed services is you can go in and say, these are the things that we need to do to right your ship. And then, by the way, you're going to see things run so much more smoothly, and we're going to ensure that they continue to run smoothly. When you do that break fix model, the wheels fall off all day long, and you can't predict when they're going to fall off. And so you're right. It's a tough pill for new customers to swallow, this idea of, well, I'm going to pay you every month, whether I think I need you or not, into this. You're paying for uptime. Right, you're paying for us to keep you online and safe,
you're paying for reliability.
That's right.
You're paying for capability and reliability.
That's great.
You can't. The old days. I'm still amazed. Occasionally, last week I was on a sales call, and this customer had some people working out of their garage doing IT stuff on a side basis. They were looking for a more consistent product. And I'm still amazed that I will go on sales calls and still see customers doing things like we did it 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago in IT.
You know what I've seen, and this is probably for another podcast, but I've seen MSPs go backwards as a way to attempt to differentiate themselves. Well, everybody else is selling this reoccurring model, but we're not going to do this. We're going to only, and it's really like, is that how you want to run your business? And to me, it's not, but to some it is. And so it's an interesting conundrum that we've created for ourselves. But I'm glad to see that you saw the light even early on in the MRR model, because MRR is king, right? It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Until I got to MRR, I was just trying to outrace my expenses.
Yeah.
Well, that's a horrible business model. So let's try and outrace our expenses and keep up with everybody's needs that may or may not come. And you don't have any way to judge the quantity or quality of the request. And you have to have a structure to take care of people.
Yeah. So when you grew your business, by the way, speaking of taking care of people, as you grew, naturally you needed to hire some more people. And you're not a huge team, but you are a very, very solid team. You've hired the right people, but you struggled at first, didn't you, as a boss?
Yes, I did.
You talk a little bit about those sort of, early hiring, some of those mistakes you might have made.
There's so many of them. There's so many. So the first thing that I did was I made the mistake of hiring people from my church community. And I'm still part of a great church, still part of the same church community. But something that was a horrible decision, because I wasn't a very good boss. They weren't very good employees. And I went through a number of people early on, and in those days, that money really mattered. I didn't have very many. I didn't have very many bullets in my shotgun going hunting, right? So every round you expended, that hurt, right? And eventually you end up empty. So I got beyond that. Then I started, it was really Entree leadership that really helped me dial in the hiring process. That I used to hire people based on community relationships and recommendations. And now I don't hire somebody until they've been through 5 or 6 interviews. The first interview is just a get to know you conversation. The second interview, just to see if there's a conversation we had. The second interview then is more of a traditional job interview. Then we put people through 1 or 2 personality tests, DISC profiles or Working Genius profiles. Then based on that, we come back, we have a team interview. And then finally, if a person has somebody significant in their life, it's a social dinner with my wife and I. My wife doesn't work in the business, but just to see, okay, do we all like each other? Because, my plan in the early days, in the early days, I didn't have much money, and so better people deserve to get paid. And so one of the things that I love to be able to do is pay my people well and have profit sharing and, take care of all that stuff. And in the early days, I just didn't have the cash flow to do it. So we just had to make do. So, and, now we've got very strong employee retention. We've got a really great team, and we've learned how to figure out what kind of path somebody's walking on before we ask them to join up with their path. So it's my job to know my path as a business owner. It's my job to know the courses I'm piloting in this plane, right? But I have to figure out what course is somebody doing. And if we're not on parallel courses, if they're flying over here and I want to fly this direction, we can't hire that person. Selfishness will kill a team. The number one thing that I look for in a job interview is selfishness. We all have our self-interest. I'm not worried about that. My job is to take care of my employees' self-interest. I mean, we all have families to take care of. We all need to get paid. We all need to, have a great work environment. We all need that. That's my job, is hopefully a good employer to show up and create that culture. But I can't have selfish people that I'm serving, because they will destroy a team. And I've had some real selfish people over the years. One of the things that just right before I came across Enable, I had a technician that was so selfish that he thought, hey, I'm going to be a business genius here. I'm going to negotiate a deal working for one of my customers, and I'm going to take what they're paying TechKnowledgey along with my own pay, and I'm going to be a business genius. Look at this raise that I got, and then headed out the door and left a poison pill behind. I mean, that was horrible. And then, he executed on that while I was out of state doing an install because I didn't want to take, this was years ago, but I didn't want to take him away from his young kids. I was trying, you don't want me doing your install, but if you tell me what to do, I can go ahead and do it. I'm not a tech, but it was a job that I could, be boots on the ground for anyway. And to have people do stuff like that to you, that's what you sign up for as a business owner. You want to love everybody. You want to be trustworthy. You want people to be trustworthy with you, but along the way, there's going to be people. There's going to be people that screw you along the way, and we all have those wounds. And the way that I can tell a real business owner from somebody that's a wannabe business owner, or somebody that's actually played the game from somebody that doesn't want to play the game, is I'll look them in the eye and I'll say, "Tell me about the first time you paid $10,000 or more for somebody else's mistake." Mm-hmm. That's where it was. As a good employee, as an account manager, I was used to taking care of my own mistakes. If you're a business owner, if you're going to take care of having a team, if you're going to love people well, you are signing up to make everybody's mistakes right to the extent you can make it right to maintain trust, whether it's an employee's mistake, a customer that wasn't able to pay you, a vendor that failed, maybe somebody had some trouble with some logins or something like that. It doesn't matter where the failure is. You need to make that right as a business owner to maintain trust. And sometimes that costs money. And those were very harsh lessons in the early days because I couldn't imagine purposely screwing somebody. Yeah. But other people do it as a day-to-day way of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I know you're just a good guy, and obviously you're part of some great communities. You have a religious community, like you're part of some great and like sections of the population. And trust is so important, and trust has always been so important. You talk about the pillars of trust and how important those are to your business. You've already given us a couple examples, but talk about why the pillars of trust are just so critical to your MSP and really how those affect client relationships.
100%. Well, let's step through them. So we've got 6 pillars of trust that we train on. So the first pillar of trust is mutual concern. You got to care about the other person's needs as equivalent to your own. If you don't care about the other person, you shouldn't be doing anything. You won't do anything to serve them. That's that selfishness we talked about. Mm-hmm. Second pillar of trust is personal value. Do you care about who people are, or you just care about what they can do for you? So showing genuine interest in their family, in them as a person, hobbies, what are they trying to get, seeing the movies in the other person's head, understanding their perspective. The third pillar of trust is integrity. The words and actions matching up. And I'll give you a long list of people that I consider to be high integrity I don't trust. There's a lot of people out there with high integrity that I don't trust, and I think integrity is where people really get off the rails. That, a lot of vendors will focus on integrity, and everybody will jam integrity through. Great. So you said you did what you said you're going to do. That doesn't mean you're trustworthy, Next pillar of trust then is capability. Does somebody have the necessary skill? I'm not capable. If you want to hire me, run your 1,000 PC network, I don't have that capability. You can't trust me for that. I will do an excellent job running your 100 PC network, and we'll do that all day long. And plus, tell them, please share that with all your friends. We'll take care of them too. We are very capable in that space. And then the next thing beyond capability, which is the necessary skill, is capacity. Does somebody have the necessary resources? Do you have the time? Do you have the bench? Do you have the money? Do you have, whatever is needed, to make sure you have the capacity to carry that out? That there's a lot of people, especially in the business world, that, we're dealing with extremely capable people. Even, that self-employed person we were talking about that we might run into at a conference, they are extremely capable. But unless you build out a team, unless you build out systems, unless you build a business around it, your capability your capacity is going to give out way before your capability ever does. Mm-hmm. And that's what Enable really brings to me is capacity and capability. And then finally, reliability. Do you keep your promises over time? And then personally, I underpin all that with a healthy dose of grace, because somewhere along the way, it's going to get messed up. You know,
Right.
It doesn't always go right all the time. And so you got to budget for that $10,000 mistake. You know, you got to leave some grace that we're dealing with humans. We're dealing with imperfect situations. There are things that could go wrong and blow a crap load of trust. They're completely outside of your control. And you just have to do these other things day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, to make sure that that bank of trust is built up to survive that tough day, because everybody's going to have a tough day eventually.
That's super powerful, Boyd. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always love when you get really passionate about that. And I know it's important to you and it's important to your business as well. So thank you.
And
Awesome.
that helps us with everything in the business. So, you know, if we're deciding what product to bring in, you know, we run it through the list. If there's something going on squirrely with a client, we run it through a list. If there's something squirrely going on among the team, we run it through the list. You know, that this is our troubleshooting decision-making checklist. And codifying trust is one of the big things that is, I'd say that's the number one thing that we did add the most recent extra $1 million in revenue.
That's awesome, man. So speaking of adding revenue, you still play a really key role in sales. Why have you chosen to maintain that hands-on approach, and how has that benefited your business?
Oh gosh, it's because I like it. I mean, honestly, it's the only thing that I'm that's an employee of the business. I mean, I've got a great service manager that runs the day to day. I've got great technicians. They don't need a thing from me. But we take if you've ever watched the movie Moneyball, you know that instead of having a star sales player, which is the mold that I came out of, and I guess I made a living at it long enough, I go in that category. Instead of doing that, we play Moneyball. That I've got a customer success person. It's also my personal assistant that helps out with the renewals, the price increases, taking care of that. I've got a marketing guy on staff that takes care of lead generation and helps out with that. And then basically they bring me in to I just deal with the new stuff and broken stuff. So if it's a crazy client situation, I'll come in and fix it. And then nowadays, it's not like the old days that it was a blue ocean out there that everybody was getting an MSP for the first time. There's still plenty of business like that, but a lot of the businesses we're getting is some other MSP screwed up. You know, somebody broke trust or some internal IT guy quit, and it's just that I found that the best customers we're earning in the last 18 months or so, it's been breakdowns of trust. And, by making myself a student of trust and genuinely believing that this is the way to take care of people in my heart of hearts, I kind of feel like a trust doctor. I going in there and figuring out, okay, where was trust broken? How can we heal this up? And, I feel like I'm half counselor in most sales situations anymore. And just to know, there's a lot of hurting people out there that are really good people, but they've been beat up and damaged along the way. And if we can come in and help make them whole through giving them world-class IT services and helping them be relevant and having them free from fear, that's worth showing up to work. And I don't have to replace myself in that role quite yet. That day's coming. So, someday I'll meet some young kid that will replace me in that. But, for now, I don't mind doing it. I
still suspect you'll still be involved, even if it's at the very beginning or the very end, because I think you said it earlier, right? Like most of your partners, most of your customers are buying a piece of you, right? They look and they go, Boyd, this guy, I trust him, and I trust that his team are the ones that are going to be able to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. And not to say that a salesperson couldn't do that, but it's something about like, this is your blood, right? Like this is your soul, that built this company. And when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do something. So I think it's important that you as the owner always have your finger on the pulse and continue to even handshake, hello, I'm going to hand you over to somebody, but you're going to always want to probably be involved.
Oh, 100%. And in the early days, people were buying me, so the first $1 million, it was all about me. The second $1 million, it was all about my team. And that's a really, really good feeling. And the millions after that are going to be all because of the team. That doesn't, awesome. Hopefully my team keeps me around and they enjoy having me, but but it's not, but in the early days, it definitely is about the owner, but it'll only take you so far.
Very good. So you mentioned business transformation earlier. That's obviously how you and I got to know each other through a couple of the programs that Robert and I were running couple of years ago, and I think you've been to just about all of them so far. There's one more I'm going to get you to. We're going to do that at the end of the year.
Yep.
But talk a little bit about, can you elaborate a little bit about how that impacted you and maybe your approach to sort of growth and sales?
Oh, for sure. Business transformation in general. So the big missing part of the business, if I look back, 5 years ago compared to today, is community. I was not running in community with other MSPs. I was running in good business community. I was running in good local community. But I was not running in community with other people that do what I do. So the business transformation events and how you guys curate that group, you didn't just let anybody come into the group, and you guys do a good job of, trying to join the right people together. That unlocked tremendous things to be able to talk shop with people that do the same thing that I do in non-competitive markets. That it's really iron sharpening iron. That old saying. That was really, really good. And then the specific knowledge, the business of security, there are products you guys introduced me to that are part of our portfolio today, and to be able to have those conversations with customers more clearly, be able to have the much richer conversation around cyber insurance, being able to, tell customers, okay, if you have this policy, this is how this is going to work. And on your worst day, we will be not able to help you until this incident command team comes in, and this incident response team is going to come in, and they are paid for by an insurance company. They are not on my team. I'm not so sure they're on your team either. And then once the judge and jury of the incident response team, does their deal, then we can all get to work. That's what you're signing up for when you buy cyber insurance. And oh, by the way, to take care of this, here's all the stuff you have to buy to be compliant with it. That's a very rich conversation. That's a hard conversation for a rookie, brand new sales kid to have, with another business owner, and, because the risk management and, how does all that work? So that's just one example of it. The most recent one, or I'm sorry, it wasn't the most recent one, but last fall, there was a revenue growth one. And just being able to hear from other people in the team that, we completely changed up how we do our workstation replacements. That we used to do that as hourly professional services, and by exchanging notes with somebody else in the room, I just kind of borrowed their homework, and now we've got here's the checklist, and here's the flat rate, and then adding another tool to it, and just taking the friction out of the most mundane, it's the most basic thing of IT is lifecycle management.
Right.
You just got to replace the old machine. There's nothing sexy about it. You just got to go do the work and make it as easy for everybody involved, from the customer to the technician installing it. And so we were able to pick up some ideas there, and, just Dell's shipping them in by the palletful. So, you guys aren't on Dell's team, but they're happy for the work that you did. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I've number one, I loved having you at these. You've always been such a huge advocate for us, because you found value in the first 2-day session that you joined. And you basically are like, let me know as soon as a new one comes out. And so I really appreciate it. I'm glad you've been able to take away a bunch of these strategical nuggets. And
strategical, I like that.
Yeah, strategical. Yeah, I make new words up. Okay. I make new words up as we go on the podcast. So
in Prague, you were making up some new words too.
I'm sure I was.
Yeah.
So Boyd, what are the plans for the future of TechKnowledgey?
Yeah, keep doing what we're doing. We want to be an ever more trustworthy company. So, so if you look me up about 3 years from now, you're just going to see us bigger and better at what we're doing. Awesome. Medium-term plans. I realize I won't be TechKnowledgey's last president. I'm not going to be the last guy that runs technology. So I'm going to develop somebody else to be able to run the company someday, coach the right person up, bring them in. And then, after that, maybe I've got time, I just now got good at it. So it's a lot of fun. I want to go to work every day still, but, and then, after I raise up somebody else to completely run the business every day, and I'm just, in the background as a business owner, maybe then at that point, one of the other enable partners might want to take the business off my hands, or maybe I won't have to do that because I've got a business that runs without me, and I'll just continue to take care of a leadership team that takes care of my customers, and that's the near term and long term plans for TechKnowledgey right now.
That's awesome. And just out of curious, what how do you define success at your MSP? And like, are there any milestones that you've been really proud of?
Customer retention. I mean, customer retention, we only lose like one customer a year. I can honestly look you in the eye and say that, if I look at, we have 95% customer retention at a 5-year mark. And so just taking care of that. I mean, sometimes things go wrong. You're not always dealing with trustworthy people. So sometimes things just go off the rails, but for the most part, it's that customer retention is the success. Employee retention is another success that, I want to keep my team. I want to see them grow, making sure that, you want to know what keeps me up at night? I'm the old guy at TechKnowlegey, and I've got these young guys, 25 to 35, mid 20s to mid 30s. And what keeps me up at night is I want to make sure they have a place to grow, making sure that they have a place to, what is the job they're going to be doing next year and 2 years and 3 years from now. That's what keeps me up at night, keeping them around and keeping them cared for. That's success. For my customers, when my customers say, whenever it's hard to book appointments with my customers, because they're like, I've got a ton of stuff going on. IT stuff's working. Forgive me. We just don't need to talk to you right now. Mm-hmm. That's success, right? Yep. Now, eventually they got to book the appointment because we got to attend to some stuff. But right. When customers what a great compliment. When customers put you off because they got real problems to solve and their tech stuff is just running. That's a compliment, isn't it? Yep. So that's not an offense. That's a compliment.
That's really good. And I know I know both your customers and your employees appreciate that you are kept up at night thinking about them. So I can't wait to the point when you can sleep a little easier and you aren't thinking about them because it runs by itself, and I'm sure it won't be too long.
Chris, if you don't love people, you shouldn't play this game.
That's right.
I mean, if you don't love people, there's no helping you. There's no helping you. And so if you're in business to make money, please quit. The money will take care of itself if you serve people well. You don't have to worry about a thing. Take care of other people, and you'll be cared for just fine.
All right, I love asking this question to everybody. This is the Now That's It podcast, Boyd, and so I'd love to know, when did you know now that's it?
I'm going to say the benchmark. When I opened up my business to people that knew the industry and knew the numbers and didn't have a vested interest in giving me a pat on the back or whenever I benchmarked and the evidence, the judge ruled that the evidence was good and you're doing a good job to that level. That was a moment for me. That was the most recent moment to know that really put wind in my sails, to know that we're doing the right things and carry on, keep doing them.
That's awesome, Boyd, and I'm so glad that you knew you were doing a good job, but getting that that assurance. Yeah. And the other part of that too is the vulnerability you show, right? Like your numbers are in there with everybody else's numbers. Now they don't know who you are, but someone can go, hey, an MSP that's the same range of mine that's doing really, really well. Like that's pretty powerful to be able to share that information. And I love that you acknowledge that as a recent turning point for you. Pretty powerful.
Yeah. In the early days, if you want to go back, in the early days, those early struggles, were we going to make it? What was going through? I was convinced that, people in my Kiwanis Club were taking bets to see if this young kid was going to make it through. Mm-hmm. And, in the middle of that, when Google was launching their Google Workspace, they called it Google Apps for Business back in the day. Somehow the Google community found me and they sent a film crew out to our place and I got featured in a Google commercial. Awesome. I don't think they care about small businesses anymore, but at the time they did. Yeah. And so that was an early validation too. It's like, okay, well, if Google's coming to visit, you must not be too doofusy, carry on. So
yeah. Well, and you and I have become good friends over the years, not just vendor partner. It's been really good to get to know you, Boyd. I can't thank you enough for being part of the pod this week. I wish you, and will continue to wish you and the team, the absolute best of luck in the future. And please don't ever hesitate to give me a call if you need anything or you'd love to jump back on and talk again. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.